something in your life is beginning to shift in a beautiful and powerful way. The things you have been dreaming about, the visions you have held quietly in your heart, the possibilities you have imagined again and again are starting to move closer to you. It may even feel as if they are preparing to appear with a surprising sense of ease. Take a moment and notice it. Can you feel that subtle change in the air around you? And I'm really curious about your experience. Do you feel this shift in your own life right now? Let me know in the comments, because reading your perspectives and stories is one of my favorite parts of this space. If you have been here with me for a while, you probably know how much I value this space and the connection we share. And if you are new here, I am truly happy that you found your way here today. There is something incredibly special about gathering people who think deeply, who feel deeply, and who are open to exploring what life can really become. Every message, every comment, every shared story reminds me that none of us are alone in sensing that something bigger is unfolding. And if you enjoy these kinds of reflections and conversations about consciousness, imagination, and creating a more aligned life, feel free to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. And chances are that if this video found you, you can feel it too. There is a quiet but undeniable transformation happening. The old ways of looking at life, the rigid ideas about what we are supposed to do and how we are supposed to live, are beginning to loosen their grip. For a long time we have been handed systems, rules, and step-by-step formulas that promise to show us the right path forward. But right now something fascinating is happening. The entire paradigm is slowly turning inside out, inviting us to question those structures and rediscover something much more natural, something much more alive within ourselves. And once you begin to notice this shift, it becomes almost impossible to ignore it. And the interesting thing is that many of those old structures are starting to fall apart right in front of us. The more we try to cling to them, the more we try to force ourselves back into those rigid formulas, the less they seem to work. Sometimes they even begin to backfire. We push harder, we follow every rule we were given, and yet we feel more stuck, more frustrated, more doubtful of ourselves than ever before. But that confusion is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. In many ways it is a sign that you have already crossed a certain inner threshold. Something inside you knows that the path is not meant to feel so heavy and complicated. Beneath all the noise there is a much simpler truth waiting to be rediscovered. The real you, the deepest part of you, has always known this. Whether you call it your true self, your inner child, your soul, or simply your inner knowing does not really matter. It is the most honest and natural part of who you are. And that part of you does not need to study endless techniques just to access creativity, inspiration, or the flow of life itself. That inner presence already understands how to connect with the infinite creative spirit that moves through everything. It already knows how to open to feeling, to receptivity, to that gentle willingness to simply be yourself. From that place, receiving does not feel like a struggle. It becomes something natural. Everything that lives in your consciousness, every energy that resonates with you, begins to move toward you in a supportive and nurturing way. And when you start to see life from this perspective, you realize that the process was never meant to be as complicated as we once believed. In fact, it may be far simpler than we ever allowed ourselves to imagine. When you begin to see it this way, life stops feeling like a constant effort. There is no endless hustle, no need to control every detail, no pressure to force things into place. Something softer begins to guide you. The more relaxed you allow yourself to be, the more at ease you become, the more trust and openness you bring into each moment, the more clearly you start to notice the quiet signals coming from within. Those signals often appear as subtle energies, deep feelings, or sudden sparks of inspiration. A thought that excites you. An idea that feels alive. A sense of curiosity that pulls you in a certain direction. And when you allow yourself to follow these impulses freely, almost playfully, something beautiful happens. You explore them, you feel them fully, you open your heart and mind to them without holding back. Then you release them again, without clinging or worrying about the outcome. Strangely enough, that is when life begins to shift in the most magical ways. When you stop gripping so tightly and start moving with this natural flow, your reality starts to reflect the very things you once only hoped for. Opportunities appear. Experiences unfold. Life begins to mirror the deeper truth that has been living inside you all along. At the center of all of this is a kind of inner currency that we often overlook, and that is imagination. Imagination is far more powerful than we tend to realize. Everything you have ever wished to create, every vision of the life you would love to live, already exists there. The feelings, the sensations, the moments you long to experience are all present within your imagination first, quietly waiting to be felt and acknowledged. And within that imagination there is also a version of you who is already living those experiences. An identity that feels natural in that reality. A version of you who relates to those moments, those opportunities, those feelings as something normal and familiar. All of that exists in the space of your imagination first. What often prevents us from trusting it is the conditioning we have absorbed for so many years. We were taught that we should only believe what we can physically see. That our inner senses are unreliable. That imagination is just a form of escape or fantasy that should be kept under control. Little by little these ideas convince us to silence something that is actually one of our greatest strengths. Yet the truth is that this same imagination holds an incredible creative power. It is not separate from reality. In many ways it is the birthplace of reality. When you begin to trust that inner space again, you start reconnecting with the creative force that has always been part of you. And interestingly, the path back to it is very simple. It is not about becoming more complicated or more serious. It is about remembering how to be like a child again, while still carrying the wisdom you have gained along the way. You keep the awareness, the discernment, the self-knowledge you have cultivated through your life. But alongside that wisdom you allow yourself to rediscover lightness. You allow yourself to feel curious again. To feel joyful. To explore life with a sense of play. When you approach reality with that openness, life begins to respond in ways that can be truly surprising. Moments unfold that you could not have planned. Opportunities appear in the most spontaneous and beautiful forms. And the more you relax into that flow, the more you open yourself to feeling everything that arises within you, the easier it becomes to see that life is not something you must constantly struggle against. It is something that can meet you, support you, and even delight you in ways you may never have expected. And when you allow yourself to feel in this way, something inside you becomes lighter. There are fewer inhibitions, fewer invisible walls built by the mind. The constant sense of limitation begins to dissolve, and what remains is a much wider space of freedom within your own consciousness. A freedom that allows you to explore, to discover, and to create without the feeling that everything must be forced or controlled. From that place, manifestation does not feel like hard work. It feels more like alignment. It grows from your faith in what you feel inside, from the quiet conviction that what you imagine carries meaning, and from your willingness to trust that inner vision. Your imagination becomes the doorway through which life begins to express itself in the physical world. And right now, it truly feels like we are living in a moment of transition. As if humanity has crossed a subtle threshold together. More and more people are starting to recognize this shift. You can see it everywhere if you look closely, in conversations, in the way people share their experiences, in the growing understanding that life does not always have to be difficult in order to be meaningful. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to embrace who you really are. Your authenticity. Your uniqueness. Your creativity. The deepest and most honest part of yourself that may have been waiting patiently to be expressed. When you give that part of you the space to move freely, almost like a child exploring the world with wonder, something remarkable begins to unfold. You start to surprise yourself. Life begins to feel more beautiful than you expected. Your days can feel lighter, more aligned, more connected to something meaningful. And slowly you realize that this is not just a distant dream or a rare coincidence. It is a real possibility for you. In fact, it may be something even stronger than that. It may be the natural direction of your life, because at the deepest level you are the creator of your own reality. And once you truly begin to live from that understanding, the path ahead opens in ways that once seemed impossible. And if you'd like to explore this idea on a deeper level, I created a free self-inquiry workbook that can help you reconnect with your imagination, your inner voice, and the version of you that's ready to create a new reality. You can download it through the link in the description below.